Hey, Aaron, do you remember when we could never get you to wear clothes?
No, I don't. I don't actually remember that. So let me introduce some of our craziest missionaries, contrary to my pleading. No, I'm just joking. My parents, Phil and Mimi Bjorklund.
We have been in Rwanda as missionaries for 14 years and then came back to the United States and worked in the States for a while as mobilizers on college campuses. And now we've redeployed in our 60s and live in Côte d'Ivoire, West Africa, or Ivory Coast in England.
Now, we connected with South partially through many of our friends that were connected with South. And then, of course, our kids, Aaron and our other son, Timothy, were coming here, and Aaron got involved in ministry here, and one thing led to another, and now we're connected with South. From my youngest years, when I heard missionaries come to our church and speak, I thought, wow, that is really something. That's something I want to do. And I think it was probably for the wrong reasons at first, because I wanted to be part of that international aspect of living. But it wasn't until I did a midterm. I spent 14 months in what was Zaire, today it's DR Congo, as a MAC worker, and found out that the Lord really grabbed my heart for the needs, spiritual and otherwise, there. And there was nothing else to do at that point other than follow in missions.
I was raised in the ministry. My dad was a chaplain in the Air Force, so for me, I had kind of decided I'll write to missionaries and maybe send money to them or something. My sister was going to be a missionary, so I was going to write to her. And then attended a conference, huge missions conference called Urbana, and at that point committed my life to missions, go anywhere, do anything.
Well, if you've all seen the story of Rwanda,
Hotel
Rwanda, popularized by Hotel Rwanda, we were there during that time period and were evacuated by Belgian troops, C-130 military aircraft, and so forth. And I went to work in the refugee camps. It was a very dark time for us. Many of our friends had been massacred in the worst ways you can possibly think of. So there have been ups, great ups. We don't want our ministry marked only by the downs. There have been really exciting times to find how some of our people weathered the storm of Rwanda and came out as solid examples of how you live your life for Christ at any cost to yourself. When we saw that happen, that was what we really want to laud.
And I think the exciting thing for us over the last 16 years now has been being able to pour into young adults, the next generation, be able to grieve with them when they are going through loss, because we've been through loss, but also rejoice with them as they are developing and as they see God working in their lives, and then help them think through what it is they want to do with their lives or what they feel God is calling them to do.
The Lord was always putting us with young adults. And we kind of went, oh yeah, and what do we do with them? Well, we're all about developing next generation leaders for church and mission. And that became our tagline, the tagline for our lives. And it was something we discovered that God was using us in. We discovered that our call wasn't necessarily to a particular mission field. It was to a kind of ministry that He had equipped us for.
To be able to see the light start to come on in their eyes and them pick up the mantle, them pick up the vision for what God wants to do in His world, what He is already doing and how they can join Him. That's incredible for us. And so that tagline has kind of blossomed over the last few years, and we're really excited about it.
And we are the directors of a program that World Venture calls Journey Corps.
Journey Corps is a 1 to 2 year program. It takes these young adults past that short term where they're kind of babysat. They paint a wall and maybe do a little Sunday school class or something with somebody translating for them. But the tough stuff of missions, the incarnational living that is modeled by Christ in Philippians 2 is missing. And that's what Journey Corps is all about, helping them understand what it means to leave it all behind, empty myself as Christ did, and step into someone else's world, their culture, their language, and love them for the sake of Christ.
One of the differences that marks Journey Corps from many other one-year programs, it's not about the work that they do, it's about the relationships that they build.
They realize that missions is not what they learned on that 1 to 2 week trip. It's what they learned living in an African home for 10 to 11 months or longer if they stay for that second year. Learning to ask themselves daily, how can I serve my family? Learning to ask themselves daily, how can I serve my church and my community? How can I live out my life for Jesus Christ no matter what I'm doing?
One of the girls that we've had recently was in a home in the middle of a Muslim community, a small group of believers living there. And she was one of these ones who came not feeling like she could accomplish anything. And during the course of the time there, she just made relationships with people, spent time with people. And during the course of the year she was there, she became very loved by the entire community. Her sisters, who had been a problem to their parents, she became an example to them, and their lives changed.
When I went to pick her up at the end of her time with us in Côte d'Ivoire, the entire community came out. It was a huge group of people to say goodbye to her. And at one point, an elderly man in the full Muslim garb came out, and somebody whispered to me, that's the imam from the local mosque. An imam is like the pastor, the head of the mosque. And he came out, and she had been practicing her Jula while she was in this village. So she spoke both French and Jula at the end. Not completely, but she was doing really well. And this imam came up to her, and he took her arm and held her hand, which is very non-Muslim to do with a woman and an infidel, a white woman who's a Christian. And he just held her hand and talked with her. And somebody whispered to me, don't take her away. She loves us.
In our relationship with South Fellowship, the number one thing we would really love to see is 1, 2, 3 of your young adults. We're talking 18 to 29 years of age. Married without children is also okay. To come out and give a year, their lives will be changed, and we will definitely increase our relationship with South Fellowship because of them. Secondly, if you can't give that much time, to receive a small group of 3 or 4 of your leaders that could come and see what the Lord is doing in Côte d'Ivoire in general, and specifically with Journey Corps. We would love to show them what we do.
That's the kind of question you ask, and then you watch 2 people sit there and cry. So, yeah, it's been worth it. God has been faithful. He has walked us through the valley. There's a passage in Psalm 84 that talks about journeying from the signposts of God's grace, basically, is what it's talking about, from strength to strength to strength as you're heading towards Zion. And that's kind of what life has been. We've had the privilege of being mobilizers for Journey Corps and for World Venture for several years as well. And as we get letters from all over the world from missionaries that we've helped launch into ministry, from young people who are stationed here in the United States who are serving in the pastorate, or who are serving on their local Board of Education, because they know that the only way they can impact people is to get involved. Yeah, it's worth it.
I would second that. It's worth it. But it hasn't always been easy, and it's hard to evaluate, because when you work with people, you can't stick a thermometer to them saying, oh, we finished this one.
That one's done.
That's not how it works. You invest in people's lives, and then you allow God to own the result of that life, because that's His. We're to find our joy in the task that He set before us. We're to leave Him the result.